Hey everyone, Arcade here, and in this video we're going to be comparing the load times of PS4 games on PS5 using the internal SSD, an external USB SSD, and a M.2 expansion SSD. However, the M.2 and USB SSD are both considered budget options, especially compared to more popular choices. But hopefully this video shows that these budget options might be just as good as any of the other popular suggestions. I do want to note though that obviously budget does not necessarily mean cheap, especially when compared to more traditional hard drives. First game I'm testing is Bloodborne. They're all using the same save, which is a lamp right at the Nightmare Church of the Old Hunters DLC. And you'll see here that all three options are basically identical. So save Bloodborne to whatever hard drive you prefer, whether you want to keep space for your PS5 game on your M.2 or your internal SSD. The external SSD is going to be just as good. I do want to point out here that the SSDs I've gone for are a Sandisk portable SSD, that's the external SSD, and a Crucial P5 Plus M.2 SSD. The P5 Plus is one of the cheapest drives on Amazon right now that achieves over 5,500 megabytes, and in Australia the 1 terabyte I got on the Sandisk external was the cheapest you could get for a 1 terabyte external SSD, and you can see the performance is great for the price. Now moving on to GTA 5, a game that is notoriously slow loading. These are all loading into the same story mode save, and I just want to point out that sometimes the timers will not start completely identical to each other, as the frame rate might have been a little off in the recording, but they all stop at the accurate moment that the save loads. The way I choose when to stop the timer is when I see the first little frame of gameplay. As you can see here, the internal SSD actually the slowest, followed by the external SSD and then the M.2, which are really neck and neck, but again, 4 seconds maximum difference. Now we are looking at COD 4 Modern Warfare Remastered, loading the biggest map. This is a local game, so it's not online at all. I didn't want to have that influencing the score where you're loading in with other players. So these are local offline matches with no bots, just loading into the overgrown map, which I believe is the largest in the game. And basically a dead tie, the exact same scenario as Bloodborne. So what's interesting to note here is that PS4 games don't really get a massive increase in load times compared to PS5 games. What I mean by that is you don't get the benefits really of a high-speed internal SSD or an expansion M.2 SSD. So my recommendation would be, if it's something you were planning on doing anyway, is to grab that SSD, the external SSD, or even just a standard external hard drive for your PS4 games, because you don't really want to have it cannibalizing your internal or your M.2 SSD, because PS5 games generally are a little larger and probably can use the faster hard drives a little more appropriately. So with that being said, this external SSD and this M.2 SSD used in this test, like I said, it's a Sandisk portable SSD and a Crucial P5 Plus 1 terabyte M.2 SSD, were both the cheapest that I could find in Australia that meet the spec of the PS5's recommended hard drive upgrade. The external SSD is not required at all for PS4 games, but it was the cheapest external SSD at 1 terabyte I could get, and the Crucial drive exceeds the 5,500 megabyte per second recommendation from Sony. When you do the little test, when you first enter the Crucial hard drive into the PS5, it reaches around 5,700 megabytes per second. So yes, you can spend a bit more, get a little faster, and obviously be happy with it, but you don't need to. This exceeds the spec recommended from Sony. Now, for the P5, you will need to buy a heatsink for it separately, but I got one for about $10 and it fits and performs perfectly with this drive in the PS5. And even when taking into account that added cost, it was still cheaper for me than any option that also meets the spec. So that's the whole point of this video. You don't need to buy the top end Generation 4 M.2 SSD. You don't need to buy a super expensive external SSD. Like I said, you can just get away with a normal external hard drive for PS4 games. But you will get really good performance from these products. The load times for PS4 games are basically the same across any hard drive you install it to. And really, the main reason for getting these expansion drives is to save space for your PS5 games. So I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer all of them. And feel free to subscribe if you're interested, and like the video if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.